In this tutorial, we'll learn how to merge 2D animation with live action footage, even when your character needs to interact with the environment.
TipTut.
Hello everybody and welcome back to TipTut and to this complete animation course. In this course, we'll be using Adobe Animate and Adobe After Effects to merge 2D animation with live action film, along the lines of Space Jam, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, or the new Tom and Jerry film. In this tutorial, 3 of 3, we'll cover what to do when your character needs to interact with the environment. I've updated the zip file that comes with this tutorial to include the assets you need to follow along with this episode. Download it from the link in the description, or you can of course shoot your own footage using your phone. So let's get cracking. So in this shot, our character plucks a berry from this flower, but you'll notice a gap in the berries. This is where we're going to add our own berry on top, so it's easier for us to animate it. To get this shot, I simply held the flower off screen and then moved the flower about whilst acting out the scene in my head. That way the flower can move as if the berry is being plucked from it. I also took a picture of a berry by itself, so it's easier to work with. Open After Effects and start a new track. You should be fairly familiar with this by now. I'm going to track the end of the flower here up until the point that it moves back sharply. I'll add a new null object with Ctrl-Alt-Shift-Y and apply the tracking to the null object. All simple so far. We don't need a camera track for this shot because the camera is completely still. This was by design. Always make it as easy as possible for yourself. We'll be adding in some fake camera wobble later on so it matches the rest of the shots. I've provided a berry.png that you can use, but basically I took a photo of the berry into Photoshop and cut it out. Bring the berry PNG into After Effects and position it in the gap. I added a curves effect to lighten it up, as well as a Gaussian blur as it's a bit too high res compared to our footage. Then I positioned it in place and added an inner shadow, set to white and soft along the top of the berry to simulate the light. I'll come back to this later, but this will do for now. Make sure to parent your berry layer to your null object and voila, we've got a berry that is tracked to the plant. Cut your layers with Ctrl-Shift-D at the moment the plant pulls back. Next up, we need to take these frames into Animate to replace the current ones we have in there. So using the same process as before, export your shot as a JPEG sequence and Animate should automatically update. Again, if it doesn't, select your images in the library, right-click and choose Update, then Confirm. We're now ready to start adding in our sketch frames. Here, I've added a few rough sketches, making sure that the character is shown pulling on the plant from the first pose. This way, we can compensate for any accidental wobble in the stem before he plucks the berry. At the point where he does pluck the berry, we'll bring in another copy of the berry here into Adobe Animate on its own layer. That way, as soon as the berry disappears from After Effects, we can continue to manipulate it in Animate, as I've done here by just placing it over my sketch frames. Let's bring these into After Effects for an early checkup. Remember to go to your publish settings and uncheck Compress and Show Hidden Layers, and then check Optimize for After Effects. Then create a new SWF with Ctrl-Enter. Drag that into your After Effects composition and pre-render to see how it looks so far. Looking pretty good. Let's add some fake camera shake. Create a new null object with Ctrl-Alt-Shift-Y and tie everything except the berry to it. This is already tied to the other null, which is now in turn tied to the new null. Scale the null up by about 10% to give us some wiggle room. Literally. Press P to bring up the position keyframe for the new null, then Alt-click the stopwatch to bring up the coding window. We're going to type a simple piece of code here. Wiggle, open parentheses, 3, 10, close parentheses, semicolon. This code makes the position parameter wiggle 3 times a second for a distance of 10 pixels in random directions. Play with these numbers until you get something that you're happy with. I'll add a quick bit of color correction to the background footage and the berry too with a curves and hue saturation effect just to bring them together a bit. Cool, that's looking pretty good. Time to jump back into Adobe Animate and neaten up the frames. The only important or unique aspect of this is that we haven't done any tracking for the character, so where he is in the frame is where he'll be in After Effects with perfect accuracy. This is important for the position of his hands as he manipulates the berry. I've gone ahead and finished up the frames here, so we're working with a finished animation. I did these on my weekly live streams, hence the branded background. I live stream every Friday at 2 p.m, so make sure to check the past live streams out if you need any of this process in detail. There's plenty of good stuff in there. Again, I added basic color in Adobe Animate, and we'll add the shading, masking, and lighting back in After Effects. The lighting in this scene is pretty soft, so the usual trick of adding an inner shadow set to color burn and angled downwards is a good start. We'll also add a basic shadow by duplicating the swift layer and adding a fill effect on top set to near black. Then we'll make it a 3D object and rotate it into position so it's behind our character. Let's add a Gaussian blur to soften the edges and reduce the opacity down so it's not as strong. Finally, we'll set the blend mode to multiply. That's looking pretty good. The final thing to do is to add some of the ground in front of the character's feet. So we'll duplicate the footage, place it above our character, and mask out the section in front of his feet. I'll feather the mask a little bit too by pressing F and giving it a few pixels blur. With that, we're finished with the visual parts of our animation. So I'll render out the entire sequence as an MP4 using Media Encoder's YouTube 4K setting. Now, I'll take this into Premiere Pro to add some audio. You can add the audio directly in After Effects, I just prefer working in Premiere. I used freesound.org and YouTube's audio library to search for the following sound effects: some wind whistling through the trees, footsteps, and rustling leaves and twigs. Then I just recorded myself doing a few vocal noises, like grunts and hmms. In Premiere Pro, I dropped the footage into a new sequence and layered the audio over the footage. If adding sound to your animation is something you'd like to see a detailed tutorial on, let me know in the comments. Okay, let's look at the finished product. Thank you so much for joining me on this course. I hope you found it useful and you can start to see how you can bring your own ideas to life with this method. I'd love to see anything you can come up with, whether it's following along or making something of your own based on these ideas. So remember to tag me with whatever you create on social media. That's at TipTutZone. Thank you very much for watching. Congratulations on completing this course, and I'll see you next time on TipTut. I'd like to thank my awesome channel members who support me every month via YouTube membership. They're lovely people, one and all, and if you'd like to become a member, just click the join button below for exclusive perks and benefits.
Remember to subscribe for more tips, tricks, and tutorials. Thanks for watching.